Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong makes clear that Singapore will not legalise drugs despite a trend in other countries to do so. He adds that Singapore is safe because of a strict anti-drug approach. More on the illegal drug situation in Singapore. We're joined by Sng Chern Hong. He's Deputy Director from the Central Narcotics Bureau. Mr. Sng, overall we know the number of drug abusers, that has actually fallen over the years. But the number of new abusers and offenders below the age of 30, now that is still significant. Should we be concerned?
Definitely for CNB, we are concerned about this trend. We have been watching the drug situation as well as studying the profile of drug abusers arrested. And indeed, in recent years, we noticed that in terms of the youth abusers arrested, those below 30 years old, it stands at about 40% of the total drug abusers arrested. But we are taking proactive steps to address this. And one such measures is our preventive education. So we have revised our strategy in doing outreach and engagement. So whether it is online or offline activities, whether it is campaign such as the anti-drug abuse campaign or the Data Itu Haram campaign championed by MOS 5-star, we have been coming up with more nuanced and targeted messages so that we can better communicate the anti-drug message across to the target audience. And we'll continue to do so because we want to garner the support of Singaporeans to uphold the zero tolerance stance against drugs.
But, you know, Mr. Sng, now that many things have gone online, I imagine that there are new challenges that CNB face in trying to stem the problem and even stay ahead of the problem.
You are right that there are challenges because syndicates and drug traffickers, they tend to think that with online means, with social media, this can accord them with some degree of anonymity and that they can evade detection from CNB. But they cannot be more wrong because if you notice the media reports that we pushed out recently on operations against drug offenders that used Telegram for their illicit activities. This goes to show that regardless of the change in technology or the MO that they adopt, one thing that remained constant throughout the 50 years of CNB's history, and that one thing which is key to our success is the dedication and commitment of officers to take out drug offenders and to bring them to justice.
Mr. Sng, let's bring these things up to date. In a short while, will be almost 2 years of restrictions due to COVID-19. We would think that with border restrictions, it might be harder for drugs to move from country to country. How are drug smugglers using this pandemic or using what has happened during the pandemic to their advantage? And how is CNB managing that?
Yeah, rather than saying that they are using this to their advantage, it will be more because COVID has impacted on all activities, including drug trafficking activities. So the drug syndicates and traffickers, they are looking at new ways to overcome this. And indeed, they have come up with some novel methods to smuggle drugs into Singapore. So in this past 1-2 years, we see methods such as concealing of drugs in fruits, in furniture, and also trying to fly across using drones. But despite the different tactics they employ, CNB will continue to work very closely with our home team counterparts at the checkpoint to monitor the drug situation very closely and to take prompt enforcement actions to neutralize all these activities.
Now, Singapore's stance on drugs has definitely not changed in the last 50 years, but perhaps what has changed is the way CNB engages the public now versus then. Perhaps you can tell us more about that.
So one of the key change for us is definitely the use of social media. Because our youth are very well connected, they are using social media to receive all kinds of information. So CNB also need to be on social media, and we have been coming up with more engaging and emotive content, co-creating with youth and students on contents that can better resonate with their peers. And COVID also accelerated this use of social media because we can hardly do physical activities this 1-2 years. So we had our first drug-free SG virtual concert earlier this year involving partners and advocates. So another key aspect that I'll briefly mention is the advocacy efforts that we are embarking on, because we need to bring on board community partners and like-minded individuals to help to amplify this anti-drug cause. And we have been doing that, and I'm hopeful that with the support of the community and our partners, we will be able to realize a drug-free Singapore in time.
Well, thanks very much for staying up to do this interview, Mr. Sng Chern Hong, the Deputy Director from the Central Narcotics Bureau.